Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom. I said, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is the day that the Lord has made. And isn't it a beautiful day? We're going to get our program started. This is such a momentous and joyous occasion. And it's been a long time coming, Mr. Councilman Michael Julian Bond, and thank you for your support. We're going to get our program started, first of all, with a welcome from Marshall Taggart, who's the Associate VP for Government Affairs at Clark Atlanta University. And of course, he played a great role in putting this together. Marshall Taggart, let's give him a big hand.
Thank you, Samuel Burston. Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful day. It's very historic for us to be here today with individuals who have really blazed the path to ensure for justice, for equality, and for participation in the American way. Clark Atlanta University, our family that's here in the audience, for those who are in class today, those who are in and around the city making an impact, we in turn all welcome everyone here today to our hallowed grounds here at Clark Atlanta, the Clark Atlanta University. I will say something to you with this Trevor Arnett quadrangle. It's one thing that we tell our students, do not step on the grass because you will not graduate. A lot of us remembered that. But I will tell you, it is a place that has provided a definite inspiration for individuals, particularly at the end where we have W.B. Du Bois, and right before that we have two great giants, which I know our president will mention in his remarks, that are buried here on our campus. Again, we welcome you and we hope that you enjoy the program. If there's anything we can do to make you feel comfortable here on our campus, please reach out to one of us with our pins here that represent Clark Atlanta. Thank you so much. Next up, we'll have Dr. Tanya Miles.
I think Marshall is trying to do my part as well, right? Thank you, Mr. Taggart. Can you imagine in the 60s, I was extremely young at that time, when the students were gathering on this spot, and we are here today on this beautiful campus, which has been transformed by our president, Dr. George T. French Jr. And before the students gathered, they would always pray. So please welcome to provide a prayer of providence, Reverend Dr. Tanya Miles. Reverend Miles.
Let us pray. Creating and sustaining God, we pause this morning to acknowledge your presence, your faithfulness, and your love. We give you thanks for this part of your vineyard. We give you thanks for this holy ground, our firm foundation. God, we give you thanks for the ways that you have inspired individuals throughout generations. We give you thanks for the Greensboro Four. We give you thanks for the members of the Atlanta student movement, those who are here and those that we remember. We thank you for their courage. We thank you for their boldness. We thank you for the ways that they stood for justice. We thank you, Lord, for your love that overcomes hate. We thank you for your love and your grace that moves beyond injustice. On this day, as we begin our Founders Week activities, we thank you for our founders. And we ask that you would stir up within us the gifts that we might continue this good fight towards goodness, towards justice, towards equality in this world that would be fitting of you. God, we pray that you would move upon us, that you would move within us, that you would move all around us. that your goodness and your light might shine, that this world might be transformed, and that you might be known. So have your way, Lord, today. Have your way, Lord, every day. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Miles. Please allow me to introduce an individual who's a president among college presidents. He's an avid historian because he loves history. When he first arrived about 4.5 years ago at CAU, I thought I was the busiest person I knew in development until I met him. He has transformed this campus, as you can see by the great beauties of the spring. And he is a president who puts students first. He puts faculty first. He puts staff first. He puts alumni first. He is the fifth president of E. Clark Atlanta University, Dr. George T. French Jr. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you so much, Sam, for that kind introduction. Most certainly to the Honorable Michael Julian Bond, to the Atlanta Student Movement members, to include Charles Black, Lydia Arnold, the Honorable Judge Brenda Hill Cole, and other members who are here present this morning, to our student scholars, to CAU faculty and staff, to include members of my executive cabinet here this morning. Welcome to what are the hallowed grounds of Clark Atlanta University. And welcome to the historic Trevor Arnett Hall, which was formerly the Atlanta University Center Library. We are witnessing and standing on hallowed ground as we observe Trevor Arnett Hall. And you will know that this is a building of the academic Beaux Arts architectural style, the style that has the unique features of steel and wood and bricks and the different columns that come together to make up the Beaux Arts style. So we're standing here on sacred ground. And as was intimated by my AVP, Marshall Taggart, this program kicks off a week-long series of events in celebration of our Founders Day. We share today this event in this quadrangle, which is the historic resting place for two of the former presidents. We have behind us the grave there of Dr. John Hope, who was president at one point simultaneously of Morehouse College and Atlanta University, and who, of course, was later and died as the president of Atlanta University. And then we have Dr. Thomas W. Cole Jr., who was the president at consolidation, upon the consolidation of Clark Atlanta University, of Clark College and Atlanta University. And of course, we know that it was originally Clark University and then became Clark College. Then when you look a little bit further down, we note that to the right is historic Harkness Hall, built in 1934. Upon those stairs was the public funeral of Martin Luther King Jr. If you go just closer toward the gate, we have the bust there of William Edward Burghardt Du Bois, faculty member here for 24 years, scholar, academician par excellence. I want to thank the members that we are commemorating today. We thank them because, like the mythological Sankofa, that bird flies forward while looking backwards, celebrating the past while also preparing and going into the future. And we sit here today collectively in celebration of the Atlanta student movement and those individuals who had the nerve, gall and audacity to speak truth to power. And make sure young folks don't get it twisted. When we decided to march downtown upon some of the social injustices, and your president fully supported that, that's one thing. But when you had past administrations at HBCUs, presidents could not afford to publicly support the students. I was president of Miles College for 15 years. President Pitts was run out of town when it was discovered that he was supporting the students of Miles College in their protest. It happened everywhere. It happened on these grounds. So these former students not only had to fight against racial injustice from the other side, but they also had to fight against the administration to make it happen. So understand that we celebrate you. And I'm going to ask all the individuals who are participants in the Atlanta student movement, if you would please stand, that we might now celebrate and recognize you. Won't you please stand? One more time. Come on, let's give it up. Thank you so much. And as I take my seat, the hallowed grounds that I also recall, I'm reading Frederick Douglass now as the autobiography. And I'm recalling how hallowed these grounds are. Because this institution, you might remember that the Civil War was effectively ended at Appomattox Courthouse after William Tecumseh Sherman had his historic march to the sea with a scorched earth policy, totally destroyed Atlanta. But at Appomattox Courthouse, you remember that that Lee surrendered to Grant. That was in April 1865. This institution was established 5 months later in September 1865. That's our heritage. That's how long we have been here. And that's why we celebrate the founders of this institution. And we begin by celebrating the leaders of the Atlanta student movement. Congratulations, and we thank you.
Now, didn't I tell you he was a historian? I told you that, right? This little light of mine, we shall not be moved. Oh, oh, freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, songs of the movement. We will be grace in church speak, we used to say with an A selection from an avid Atlanta vocalist. Please welcome Reverend T. Renee Crutcher. Reverend Crutcher.
free. Oh, Jim Crow! Oh, Jim Crow! Oh, Jim Crow! You must go! You must go! And before we'll be slaves, we'll be buried in our grave. And go home to our love and be free. You won't stop us. You won't stop us. You won't stop us from being free, from being free. And we thank you. We bless God for you. Yes, we do. Yes. What to do? So we thank God. Yes, we thank God and bless God for you. All right, all right, all right.
Reverend T. Renee Crutcher. I don't know about you, but feel like I need to march somewhere. Thank you, T. Renee Crutcher. And I want to also say bien, bonjour, à Madame Boone, et Madame Georgette Thomas. Bienvenue. At this time, I'd like to bring to the podium the catalyst for this entire program. Been knowing him for a long, long time now. I refer to him as Bond, Michael Julian Bond. Please come to the podium, sir.
Well, I'd like to say good morning to everyone. Good morning, Dr. French. Good morning, the progenitors of our freedom, the members of the Atlanta Student Movement. Let's give them another round of applause. To our students, to our honored guests, and to the public, we want to say good morning. I'll try to be as brief as possible in my remarks. This is an undertaking that has gone on now for almost 14 years, trying to memorialize the Atlanta student movement. Of course, we first did it by renaming a portion of Fair Street to Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard and a portion of Raymond Street to Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee Drive. That was done to preserve the memory of the movement. But as Dr. French alluded to, the story of freedom of this plateau actually goes back 150 some odd years. We'd have to go all the way back to the Civil War when Sherman was encamped on this site and bombed Atlanta for 40 days to crush the Confederacy and to free African Americans. But what is not widely known and not often told is that almost 2,000 African American Atlantans, Metro Atlantans, and those from Macon, Georgia, formed the 136th and the 137th Regiment that marched with him to the sea, that marched with him into Richmond to take the capital of the Confederacy. Right? That deserves some applause. And from that, when the Freedoms Bureau was established, it was established right across the street where the Student Center is now. Why is that relevant? Because the student movement, the inception for it, started on that site at Yates and Milton drugstore. Started by I believe, the first African American pharmacist and the president of Citizens Trust Bank started that enterprise. They had a soda fountain in there where and a lunch counter where the students would gather. And so on one crisp March day, Lonnie King, Dr. Lonnie King, approached uh, Joe Pierce and Julian Bond to talk about the Greenville sit-ins. And so that is where the seed was planted for the Atlanta student movement. Out of that movement, all of Rosalind Pope, Carolyn Long Banks, uh, Ben Brown, who's no longer with us. Who else we have here? Marianne Smith, John Clark, Marion Billy, James Felder, Mr. Banks, and so many unnamed others, including our program participants that are here today, gathered in this spot every time that there was a march to go downtown to desegregate Atlanta in 1960. This is a movement whose stories need to be told. Now, I don't know if many of you are native Atlantans like I am, but Pascal's Restaurant at 970 MLK wasn't just the crossroads of Atlanta for black political life, it was the crossroads for black America for black political life. And having grown up there under the tender hand of Miss Sherman, was the hostess there, I heard stories about the civil rights movement and everything that you can imagine about Atlanta. But one of the things that struck me the most was not only the volume of people and students who were involved in the student movement, but how many people's stories were not told. How many soldiers that we had that did not get their songs of glory or their recognition. And so we set out to memorialize that movement. We have already erected some 15 markers all around the city of Atlanta to tell that story of what my father said was the first successful slave revolt since Reconstruction. Atlanta desegregated without mass violence. Atlanta desegregated without a bullet being fired. And so we are here today to memorialize this sacred space, this sacred place that for 150 years, when Atlanta University was established, was the germinating seed of intellectualism and conversely, spiritualism for the uplift of African Americans that not only permeated Atlanta and made Atlanta different from every other major city that had a major African American population, that made Atlanta different in the way that the movement was executed and achieved. And so today we will be unveiling these markers. One tells the specific history of the quadrangle. The other tells a tale, a truth tale, of probably one of the most prominent marches that occurred from this spot. But there were many marches that occurred from this spot. Thousands of students, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old as the average, from this spot, gathered, prayed, sang, changed Atlanta, but ultimately changed the world. And so with that, I want to say thank you all who have sacrificed. Thank you all who put themselves in harm's way. Thank all those who wanted to, but their parents wouldn't let them march. Thank all those who wanted to, but their coaches wouldn't let them risk their scholarships. But they did other things. They've participated in other ways. They've laid their hands on the movement, on the wheel to move us all towards freedom. We love you. We respect you. And though we may not know your name or be able to call your name, we know your spirit, and we are the inheritors of your sweat, your blood, and your contribution. We are your children that rest in the breast of freedom, and we love and we thank you, and we're appreciative of you for it. And we have a special obligation, like Dr. French said. I love the comparison to the Sankofa bird. We want to challenge the students. Yes, we're going to look back so that we don't forget how we got here. But it's up to the young people to continue to face those headwinds. Because when the bird's head is turned backward, when he's flying on faith. So we want you to go forward on faith that will be ever upward, ever lifting, ever forward to uplift our race. God bless you and thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you again to the Honorable Bond, Michael Julian Bond, the President, excuse me, Mr. President. At this time, before we move to the next speakers, we have another special president here. Uh, I think her name is Markeisha Handley, Dr. Markeisha, who's the president of the Interdenominational Theological Center. Would you please stand? Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you so much. I first met this young lady, I think about 20 years ago, but I didn't know she was involved in what she was involved in. She used to work for the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I was in the hospitality industry way back when. Her name is Miss Lydia Tucker Arnold, Clark College class of 61, and she served as the secretary for the student body. This gentleman, you've probably seen him on TV. He's an actor. He's a motivational speaker. He's cool. He served as the second chairman of the Atlanta Student Movement, Mr. Charles Black, Morehouse College, class of 62. They're going to come to provide remarks. Miss Arnold.
You have seen the gentlemen who have been so nice to help me get up and sit down. I had a little accident, and so we're just kind of tipping because I don't want to fall and have another accident up here. So thank you so much for coming here today. We appreciate you. We are happy that you let something else go to come and be here with us today. I told someone on the way over here, they mentioned, well, you know Sam, because that's what we always call him, Sam Burson. And I said, yes. And they were very surprised about the remarks that you made just a few minutes ago. I am thrilled. I am happy. We go back many years. Some of us made great sacrifices to do this. They are those who are no longer with us, but they gave the sacrifice to be here today. So we always remember them. Charlie Black and I, um, and there are other persons here too. Well, I don't see them, but we kind of carry the load because we are here in Atlanta. And we always try to involve the others and bring everybody in because there were many people who gathered right out there so that you would know and be able to sit here today. Thank you so much for being here, and I'd like to speak to each one of you after we finish.
Good morning, everybody. That helicopter is either surveying us or pro- protecting some of you. I don't know which it is, but they're definitely hanging around. Let me thank all of you here who've invited us and are responsible for this occasion. But first, I must acknowledge my progeny that are here, my first and second and only known daughters. Uh, Number one over here, that's Yvette. And next to her, with less hair, is Julie. Those are my daughters. They got their good looks from her mother's side, I think. I also want to recognize the fact that there are some very important key people from our movement who are present whose names are not listed on the program, who were stalwarts, very key movers and shakers in our movement. Johnny Parham on the end here. Let him see you, Johnny. The tall, handsome, gray-haired fella there was a student at Atlanta University at the time. And next to him is Ann Ruth Borders Patterson, sitting next to her handsome husband there. She was a Spelman and one of the organizers of Morehouse's first cheerleader team for our football team. And you know Queen Brenda Cole. Uh, Now, that was Brenda Hill, who was Miss Maroon and White when I was at Morehouse. And she looked that good then. That's why we elected her. Now, she later became known as Mrs. Thomas Cole. So she's the widow of the late president of Clark Atlanta University, for whom Beckwood Street will be renamed on Friday at 11 o'clock in his honor. So hope all of us can be there at that time. Now, there are other people here, George Ann Thomas, for example, Dr. George Ann Thomas. Now, she was one of those folk who sat in and had a cigarette put out on her arm. And she can show you the mark from that even today. There it is. She can show that to you. And I saw Antonio Thomas here, and others who may be here who tell you that they were involved. They may well have been, so believe them. Okay, oh, this is my son-in-law. I didn't see him here. Hey, Kevin, how you doing? Um, my daughter decided she wanted to change the gene pool, so she married a very tall guy to get away from this standard size genealogy here. Um, Let me just say something about where you are cited right now. You've heard some of the stuff about it, but it's significant that Spelman College is right through here, and that Clark College was right through there. This was Atlanta University in this area. Morehouse College is right behind those buildings. And down the way a bit is the Interdenominational Theological Center on what was Beckwood Street now. And you had housing for Atlanta University. And then up the hill on one of the highest points in town is Morris Brown College. And all of us were involved in this big movement. And it was probably the first time, and maybe the only time, that you had that kind of cross collegiate unity for any major cause. We all came together in that cause. And there was a secret that Lonnie King's mother shared with him as to how we could make sure we had enough people. She said, get the ladies from Spelman involved first, and the Morehouse guys will come. And the others will see the crowd and want to join in. And that worked. That really was our strategy. And when we were assembling on this site, the ladies from Spelman would come through here and assemble. The guys from Morehouse would come here, and we would march. We were going to march downtown through Clark's campus, and then go to the other locations, picking up more and more people along the way, with Morris Brown being the last pickup stop. We were going downtown to Pickett and the like. It's important to note that As Michael Julian Bond noted, the genesis of our movement was on the corner where the CAU Student Union building now stands, which was Yates and Milton's drugstore. And it was on that date that Lonnie King and Joe Pierce, whom he had known as a kid for a long time, went in to talk to other students there about what had happened in Greensboro, North Carolina. And they approached Julian because Lonnie and Julian had stood in a long registration line. And that's how he got to know him and knew that he was a bright guy, an English major, and all that. So he was one of the folk that he approached and said, "Have you seen this?" Talking about the story in the newspaper. And Bond responded that yes, he had, and Lonnie said that, "Don't you think that should happen here?" And Bond said, "Well, I'm sure somebody will probably do that one day." And Lonnie's response was, "No, what about us? Now, you take this side of, Yates, Milton, Joe, you get that side, I'll take this side." And they rallied some people in there. And following that encounter, Lonnie comes across the campus, and I'm walking in the opposite direction, going to the office of the Maroon Tiger, where I was editor for my junior and senior year. And I knew Lonnie because he was an outstanding football player. And he knew me because I'd been on the debate team and, newspaper thing and all that. So he tells me about this whole thing and calls for a meeting at the Sale Hall Annex, which is just right around the corner there on the other side of Sale Hall, where there's going to be a dedication that Bond mentioned. When are you going to do that?
In the fall.
In the fall. All right, so in that little one-story building, we had our very first meeting, and there were a dozen and a half, 2 dozen or so of us there. And Lonnie was holding forth, as he would do. And we talked about this nonviolent approach, this idea whose time had come, as Victor Hugo would have said. And Lonnie had asked that those who were there, who were not prepared to participate for whatever reason, and to participate nonviolently, we're just going about your business, don't talk about it. Well, somebody did talk about it, and it got back to the presidents of the colleges. And so they summoned some of us to Harkness Hall, which was shared by Morehouse and Atlanta University as administration building at the time. So we met in the conference room there with the presidents. There's a consortium of the schools, and the chairman of that consortium was Rufus Clement, who was president of Atlanta University. So he's presiding at this meeting, and most of the presidents attempted to talk us out of doing this terrible thing. But when they were convinced that we were intent on proceeding with our plans, one of them suggested that if you're going to do this, you should let the world know, let the city know why you're doing what you're doing. And that led to the publication of a document called An Appeal for Human Rights, which was published as a paid advertisement in the Atlanta Journal and Constitution, separate papers at the time, and the Atlanta Daily World. The presidents of the colleges raised the money for that purpose. It was picked up and run free of charge in the New York Times. It was picked up in a Los Angeles Times newspaper. It was entered into the Harvard, what is that paper called at Harvard? The what? That. And it was read into the congressional record by Senator Jacob Javits of New York. So it became a seminal document that was copied in many respects by other places. Birmingham, for example, pretty much changed the name from Atlanta to Birmingham and published such a document. In succeeding generations, student groups that I've met with have published their own versions of that appeal, updating it to the concerns that they have of the day. So as was stated, you're on pretty sacred ground here. We would always gather here when we were going to have a mass demonstration downtown. We didn't have a whole lot of cars, so we would walk from the college campuses down past Morris Brown to downtown for our demonstrations. And as was indicated, the public ceremony for King's funeral was held on the steps of Harkness Hall. I had the honor of being the lead marshal for the procession coming from Ebenezer over here. Coretta Scott King had asked Lonnie and me to organize marshals, and we got about 1,000 volunteers who were at all the intersections to control crowds and traffic and all that. So this is a very special place, very special place. Martin Luther King attended school here, you may remember, right? So did Maynard Jackson and Michael Julian Bond and his daddy and a whole lot of other very important people. Um, I did too. Yeah. I wasn't one of the smartest people, but I was here. You know, I have to tell you the story. I was what they call a Willie, in addition to the other things that I was involved in. In my senior year, I was president of the senior class, chairman of the movement, and editor of the Atlanta Inquirer newspaper. I mean, of the Morehouse Maroon Tiger. But I was also a Willie, which was my most important role. Now, for those of you who don't know, a Willie was a person who was dating a lady at Spelman, where visiting hours ended at 6 o'clock. The dinner line at Robert Hall closed at 6 o'clock. Therein lies the rub. So if you're dating a senior girl, you're in that distant dormitory on Spelman's campus, and you're trying to get that last little hug and kiss there, and also make it back to the dinner line. So the question was, will he make it? So that's why I was known as a Willie. Um, Langston Hughes wrote a poem called Dreams, in which he asked, but he says, hold fast to dreams, for if the dream dies, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold on, hold fast to dreams, because when dreams die, life is a barren field frozen in snow. Dreams go. I ain't rhyming, I got it wrong a little bit. But anyhow, so we were holding on to a dream as students here, the same dream that Martin King talked about at the Great March on Washington. By the way, that speech, which was called the greatest speech of the 20th century by somebody, Time magazine, is engraved on the outside of the King International Chapel in full down there. So you want to see that, take a picture with it. So we had this American dream. We bought into the notion that we were going to be a land of brotherhood from sea to shining sea and all that. We sang songs, we read these documents, and all men are created equal. They're endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you know. So we had bought into that dream. So we were holding fast to that dream. Our generation, it should be noted, was a generation that followed what Tom Brokaw called the greatest generation. Those were our fathers and mothers and aunts and uncles and all who had gone overseas to fight in World War II to, quote, make the world safe for democracy, only to come home and be treated like less than a citizen, less than human beings. There were some who were even lynched while wearing their military uniforms. So as Dr. Benjamin E. May's book would suggest, we were, quote, born to rebel. And it just so happened that what the young men in Greensboro, North Carolina did was, in Victor Hugo's words, an idea whose time had come. So others of us said, that's one way of dealing with this, other than fighting in the courts for decades, as we've done with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, which is what the presidents of the colleges wanted us to continue to do. But we thought that we were more intent on having revolutionary change as opposed to evolutionary change, which is kind of a slow process, as Charles Darwin would have you know. Um, so that is why we took this idea and ran with it. Now, I just quoted badly a poem from Langston Hughes, but my favorite poet was a guy named Horace Julian Bond. Now, you knew him as Julian Bond. He knew him as Daddy. He's one of my favorite people in all the world. He's a brilliant guy, a very committed guy to the rights of human change, human rights, and all that. But he was kind of silly too. Um, a poem that he wrote in the 70s during the time of the Go-Go Girls and all that. Some of y'all not old enough to know about that. But girls would be in cages doing little go-go dances and all that sort of thing. And Julian wrote a poem that was published in Jet magazine. Very short poem. I remember it exactly. It said, "Look at that girl, shake that thing. Everybody can't be Martin Luther King. Uh, so Julian was a favorite, very favorite person of mine. I want you to know that this struggle for human rights, and I want to make that distinction. We did not call our appeal an appeal for civil rights. It was an appeal for human rights, those rights that are inherent in our birth, in our basic humanity. Civil rights can be voted in and out of existence. Human rights are inalienable. You know, you got those rights. You might want to read the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UN published back in '48, I think it was. And those rights include all kinds of good stuff, like right to education, rights of movement across borders, and all kinds of stuff. Um, so, we saw our rights as being more important than those that were legislated and resolved and all at the local, state or national level, or even the international level. So it was on those grounds that we stood. And it's on these grounds that we massed our efforts. And because of what those students did, and there were at times thousands of students who were involved. So I will always say that if someone says that they were here and they were involved, don't dispute them because maybe they were. And what they did may not have been something that attracted a whole lot of attention. I like to remind people that a movement is by its nature multidimensional. And by that I mean it involves a deep commitment to high principles or ideals on the part of a lot of people doing a lot of different things over a long period of time. And that characterized our movement in the sense that those who were not prepared to go to jail or even to sit in or picket would do other things. They helped make signs, they made sandwiches for the rest of us, they made phone calls, they provided transportation, they served as lookouts and the like. And our boycott of downtown Atlanta lasted for like a year. So again, a lot of people doing a lot of different things over a long period of time. And that's a lesson for those today who want to change things. You can't just have a slogan or a press conference or an action. You need deep commitment to high ideals on the part of a lot of people doing a lot of different things over a long period of time. And so that is my message to you today. I want to thank you for being here. And I want you to share this message with those who are not here that the battle is not won. Lonnie King would often say that we put our movement on cruise control, but the opposition put theirs in overdrive. And I always add to that that we made assumptions in the '60s that once we changed laws, got signs taken down, and people got to know each other as individuals, they would either like or dislike each other on valid grounds. But what we did not reckon with was the fact that bigots had babies, and their progeny exists to this day, trying to undo everything we were attempting to do long ago. They even rise to high office, even to the presidency of the United States. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Thank you. You are such a movie star in the heat of the night. If anybody remembers Mr. Black in that program, we are going to be favored. Remember Nina Simone's song, To Be Young, Gifted, and Black? Remember Sam Cooke, A Change is Going to Come. The impression stated, people get ready. My older brothers used to listen to these songs, so that's why I remember them. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. James Brown, and you know you got to give me some respect per Mr. per Miss Aretha Franklin. And I think Rolanda Fowler, where's Rolanda? She's here. Carolyn Longbank's daughter, niece, is she here? But I know you're the niece, Rolanda, here. Stand up so that everybody can see you. Thank you for gracing us. Now let's hear. Now this is what we're going to do in terms of the next steps. We're going to have a musical selection from the CAU Philharmonic Society, and then we're going to have the reading of the manifesto by our great student leaders from the various campuses, but I'm going to introduce them individually before they come. Philharmonic.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. In my neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, in my neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. In my neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Thank you. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let your light so shine that others may see his work and your great works as well. At this time, we're going to have the reading of excerpts from the Atlanta Student Movement Manifesto. First, we'll have Cameron Lawrence. She's the SGA Graduate President for Clark Atlanta University, class of 2024. Let's give her a hand. Calvin Bell III. He's a senior and he's the historian for the MLK International Chapel. He's a Morehouse College class of 2024. Let's give him a hand. Saquon Hobbs. He's the 90th SGA president from my alma mater, Morris Brown College class of 2024. Let's give him a round of applause. And then one of my favorite names, of course, is Simone Imani Mose. She's the 82nd SGA Vice President, Spelman College, class of 2025. Scholars, take it away.
We, the students of the six affiliated institutions, form the Atlanta University Center, Clark, Morehouse, Morris Brown, and Spelman Colleges, Atlanta University, and the Interdenominational Theological Center, have joined our hearts, minds, and bodies in the cause of gaining those rights which are inherently ours as of the human race and as of citizens of these United States.
We pledge our unqualified support to those students in this nation who have recently been engaged in the significant movement to secure certain long-awaited rights and privileges. This protest, like the bus boycott in Montgomery, has shocked many people throughout the world. Why? Because they had not quite recognized and realized the unanimity of spirit and purpose which motivates the thinking and action of the great majority of the Negro people.
The students who instigate and participate in these sit-down protests are dissatisfied not only with the existing conditions, but with the snail-like speed at which they are being ameliorated. Every normal being wants to walk the earth with dignity and abhors any and all prescriptions placed upon him because of race and color. In essence, this is the meaning of the sit-down protests that are sweeping this nation today.
We do not intend to wait placidly for those which are already legally and morally ours to be meted out to us at a time. Today's youth will not sit by submissively while being denied all of the rights, privileges, and joys of life. We want to state clearly and unequivocally that we cannot tolerate, in a nation professing democracy, and among people professing democracy, and among people professing Christianity, the discriminatory conditions under which the Negro is living today in Atlanta, Georgia, supposedly one of the most progressive cities in the South. Among the inequalities and injustices in Atlanta and in Georgia, against which we protest, the following are outstanding examples: education, jobs, housing, voting, hospitals, movies, concerts, restaurants, and law enforcement.
We, the students of the Atlanta University Center, are driven by past and present events to assert our feelings to the citizens of Atlanta and to the world.
We, therefore, call upon all people in authority, state, county, and city officials, all leaders in civil life, ministers, teachers, businessmen, and all people of goodwill to assort themselves and abolish these injustices.
We must say in all candor that we plan to use every legal, nonviolent means at our disposal to secure full citizenship rights as members of this great democracy of ours. Thank you.
Come on, you can do better than that. Let's give our scholars another big round of applause. Thank you so much for your participation. I think what event did we attend, Cameron? But we were when the vice president came and all of the scholars were in the room. I said, you guys have not gotten together. You need to get together so that we all can grow together. So thank all of you for doing this today. I want to recognize the executive director of the AU Center Consortium, Dr. Michael Hodge. I think I saw, hey, Dr. Hodge, next to President French, and all the way our, she's still, I guess, no, she's not new anymore. The president said she's no longer new, but because she's been here more than 4 months. But our provost and chief academic officer, Dr. Charlene Gibbert. Dr. Gibbert, send up so everybody can see her. She's simply fantastic. And Dr. Lucas, Dr. Peters, and Mrs. Hort, our chief people person. Now, this is what we're going to do in the next step. In terms of your instructions, we're going to hear a song from the choir, and that song will allow us to do a mini march. Team, we're going to go to the markers, and we're going to do the unveiling. Mr. Black, does that sound like a plan? Sound like a plan. Choir.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Oh, ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. Turn me round. Turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Oh, ain't gonna let the system turn me round. No, no, ain't gonna let the system turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking,
Keep on talking, marching up to freedom.